Today we have Amy McCready. McCready?
McCready.
I was going to say it's like really
Close.
McCready, who describes herself as a recovering yeller over here too, and is the founder of Positive Parenting Solutions and the author of two best-selling parenting books. If I have to tell you one more time, and the Me epidemic. Amy's online parenting course teaches parents of toddlers to teens how to get their kids to listen without nagging, yelling, or punishing. Amy, you are a regular on the Today Show, and you've been featured on CBS This Morning, CNN, The Doctor, Fox and Friends, MSNBC, NBC, Rachel Ray, Steve Hart, everywhere. In your most important role, you are the proud mom of two amazing men and the most delightful daughter-in-law. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so tickled to be with both of you.
Oh, tickled. That's so cute. I like that.
What is the me? I have to know what the me is, because I feel
Epidemic.
like we are living me with teenagers. Is that what it is?
Yes, but it's not just teenagers. So I wrote that book a few years ago because it seemed like every time I was talking about parenting, it always ended up on the topic of entitlement. And so the me epidemic is, not only about, all about me, but just in general, how do we raise kids who are unentitled, who are responsible and respectful and good citizens of the world? And so I combined a whole lot of strategies and put them into that book, and hopefully raise really good humans. And they, obviously we can start when they're young, but it's never too late. Even the tween and teen years, we can really make a shift in those areas.
Is that your first book, and then you have a second book?
So that was my second one. The first one was called If I Have to Tell You One More Time.
I have to tell you one more time.
I think we need two podcasts here, because I think every parent has that biggest fear that we are raising entitled children. So I guess we'll stick with why we're here today, which is about yelling, but we need to have another conversation about that, because I feel that, I hear that, and I see that. And I can't wait to talk about that another time. But this time, why do we have such a hard time getting our children to listen? And by children, I mean teenagers and tweens.
Yeah. So there are a lot of reasons for that. I do think that growing up today is a lot harder. Obviously, so many more pressures on kids than when we were all growing up. But I will tell you, in all of my years of doing this work, it comes down to so often an issue of control. Us as parents wanting to have a lot of control, but kids need to have a sense of control too. And when we run into trouble is when we as parents are trying to hold all the power. We do a lot of ordering, correcting, and directing with our kids. And with any human, when you do that, like, their natural reaction is to push back, and they push back. And then we don't know how to handle that. And so if you don't have like good strategies in your toolbox, you resort to because I said so, or you yell, or like whatever that looks like in your home. We kind of operate from a gut response because we don't have better tools to use.
And yeah, that toolbox is, I think, what one of the most, like, it's something that we have to have in our back pocket at all times. Because exactly when you're explaining that, it's like, I'm telling you to do something, you are responding because clearly you want some control too. The way you're responding sounds so rude that I feel my skin boiling, and I feel the need to, I feel out of control. And so I'm mad. I'm just mad. But potentially, if I had the right tool, which maybe you can tell us some of those tools, I could take a beat and maybe understand or have the right thing to say so that we don't lose control in response.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, I like to, when we talk about those tools, there's so many tools that we could talk about, but I really like to kind of focus in sort of two buckets. And so the one bucket would be kind of the attention and emotional connection for our kids. And then the other bucket is around power and control. So we can actually reduce so much of the yelling and the conflict and the battles that we have with our kids by meeting their hardwired needs for attention and emotional connection. Because what tends to happen is if we're not doing that piece, we see it in their behavior. They push back more. Things that would have been just a simple request, hey, can you help me out with this? It turns into a power struggle because we haven't met their needs for attention and emotional connection. And this is true for the tweens and teens because, I mean, obviously they're growing up, their job is to separate from us and individualize, but they also need that emotional connection. So if we're not spending one-on-one time with them on a regular basis and helping them feel that we are on their team, like really emotionally connecting with them, we're going to have way more power struggles than we really need to. So kind of doing that piece first, addressing that attention bucket, emotional connection bucket, it's kind of one bucket. Addressing that first, we will fend off so many of the power struggles that we could potentially face.
And I think it's really hard as a parent to know when they're trying to let you go and what it looks like from them wanting to please you and what that transition is. Is there an age where, and I think that we call them, they're really sassy at them, like they're so sassy to me right now. And that's where not like flat out rude, which is when they get older, but like that sassy stage. When they're not that likable, how are we connecting with them?
Yes.
Because you're used to cuddling and hugging and snuggling, and then they are kind of prickly and you're like, ew. So like how do we connect with them at that age when it's tricky and the snuggles don't cut it anymore?
Exactly. So remember that all behavior is telling us something. I know you've talked about that with so many of your guests in the past, right? Behavior is always telling us something. And typically when they're being prickly, whether that's a 4-year-old or a 14-year-old, it is them wearing a sign that's saying like, hey, mom, dad, I'm not feeling emotionally connected to you. And my behavior is making that difficult because I know I'm being a royal pain in the arse right now, right? But that is really what they need. And so that's sort of the first red flag. When they start acting prickly, pushing back, maybe even being flat out rude, that really is them saying, I need that connection. So that's kind of the first thing that we would want to do. But then the other piece of that is we don't want to feed into it in the heat of the moment. So when they talk back or make a disrespectful remark, whatever it is, we have a choice in that moment. We can engage, right? You will not speak to me that way. Who do you think you are? Or we can choose to completely step out of that and say, wow, you seem really upset about this right now. Let's just both take a beat, calm ourselves down, and then we can come back and talk about solutions for this problem. But if we try to engage power with power, we're going to escalate the situation and make it a lot worse.
What about what about the ones who follow you around and seem like they want to battle? And I've seen this where they actually, you're trying to step away and it's like they want to ignite a fire. And I think a lot of parents feel this is they want to fight me. Like they actually want to fight.
What does that mean when they're doing that?
Yeah.
So 2 things. First, again, all behavior is communication. So what that is telling us is they want more power and control. And I'll talk about that in a second. But the other thing is, okay, how are we dealing with that in the moment? So one of my favorite phrases is to say, and you can even do this, like, I love you too much to fight with you about this.
Right?
I love it.
I love you too much to argue about this, and say nothing else, right? Because when they're following you around, they're baiting you, right? They're trying to suck you into this fight, and we're not going there because I love you too much to fight with you about this. So that's kind of like one way to diffuse that in the moment, but recognize that they do need a sense of control. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that we make with parenting tweens and teens is we are trying to control everything because parenting tweens and teens is scary, right? Like you know that. And so, but the more that we try to control, whether it's over their technology time, the chores they do, all those types of things, they are going to push back. They're going to resist. So the challenge, the delicate balance with tweens and teens is some things have to get done. Some rules need to be followed, but kind of bringing them into the process with that and working on solutions together, as opposed to me being the boss of everything and laying down the law and you just need to obey. The more of that we do, we are going to get that pushback because it goes just in direct conflict to their need for personal agency and control over their own world.
Holy cow. Parenting is so, you got to think so hard with these people, which is so hard when there's multiple of them. And I feel sometimes what we hear parents say is, regardless of what they're doing, even when they try to get connected, the connection feels really not two-way. Like you're showing up to connect with them, but you're not getting what you used to. So how do we know when our kid is feeling the connection if they're not overly affectionate or like, thanks, mom, I love what?
I mean, how do we know we're in a good place?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah. So it's going to be different depending on your kids, but let's start like if you haven't been in a good place, right? If you have been feeling like just there's a lot of resistance kind of built up, recognize that we have to work towards the connection. So it's the little things. It's leaving a Post-it on their mirror. It's sending them a little text. It's, sticking something in their backpack. It's just those little gestures that kind of soften them up over time. And that's kind of what we're looking for. And so like when you're saying like, how will you know? It's just that softness, right? That like everything isn't a battle. And you may even get a thanks, mom, every once in a while. The other thing that I would say is we kind of have to just think about how we're reaching out to connect. So we need to do that in their world. And so very often that's around technology. And so particularly if you have kids who like to game and do those types of things, like do that with them. Do the things that they're into, searching for TikTok videos or like whatever it is, but like connect in the ways that they want to connect. Not necessarily what you're looking for. And again, it's going to be just those little moments of connection, maybe not sitting down and painting our nails like we used to when they were 4, right?
My daughter's is going to the mall and I hate going to the mall, and I'm like, let's go to the mall, and but I think it's finding out what they love, which is what you're saying, is figure out what makes them tick and then show up there for them, even if it doesn't tick for us.
I know. And it feels like, and I think sometimes it has to be trial and error. Like when you're trying to make that connection, sometimes that's not how they want it to happen
that day.
Oh my gosh, that day. But it's also hard because we're dealing with all of the stresses that they have in their life, all the things that are going on in our homes. We are trying to be major influencers in their lives. But so often it seems like their peers, their friends are the ones that influence them the most. How do we work with them to like, so that they're not being completely influenced by, it could be a boyfriend, a best friend. How do we get involved in that so they're not, their peers aren't taking over their influence?
Yeah. So again, of course that's natural, right? They're going to separate from us. Their peer groups, their friends, the boyfriend, the girlfriend are going to be more important to them. But again, I think for us, it's showing up consistently and just, don't, so many parents are like, well, they just don't want to hang with me. They really do. Like if we show up in the right way, they will want to hang with us. One of the things that I always talk about is this concept of mind, body, and soul time. And it's one-on-one time spent with kids. And we do it with little kids all the way up to teenagers. With teenagers, it looks a little bit different, but maybe it's once a week you schedule a date to do something. But I think that act of sort of scheduling it ahead of time is really helpful for tweens and teens because they can be thinking about what they like to do. And maybe it is going to the mall or, getting a coffee or whatever it is, but really just continuing to show up for them. And I think also just being curious. So when we are with them, if we are in lecturing mode, they're going to naturally resist. And that's hard for us because we have more life experience and we probably do know better in a lot of cases. But the minute we move into lecturing mode, their feeling is she doesn't get me and I'm checking out of this conversation. So again, when it comes to their friends and their peers or whatever, just communicating with them in a way that is just curious and non-judgmental and being a sounding board. We're going to have better success connecting with them rather than defaulting into lecture mode.
Yeah, it's really hard to keep your mouth shut sometimes, even though the things that they are saying are would seem ridiculous. We also are not like 16-year-old girls in 2023. So how could,
we don't know what they're always saying. Is there like a formula to handle conflict or disagreements? And is that normal that they like, do we want them to have disagreements and conflict with us so they know how to resolve it? And how can we do it like effectively and helpfully without feeling like they're being disrespectful, rude, ungrateful people?
Yes, we do want them to be able to question things and we don't want to fight. We don't want them to fight with us, but it is okay for them to question things. And I think setting some ground rules for what that looks like. And one of them is just around respectful communication. I am happy to chat with you about anything as long as we're doing it in a calm and respectful way. And if it's feeling combative, then it's that I love you too much to argue about this. Let's chat about this later when we're all feeling a little bit more calm. But one of the tools that I love to use with tweens and teens is a tool called Convince Me. And so this example, where they want something, they want to do something, we know better, but they are insistent on it. Instead of us getting into a battle about it, you can say, you know what, I can see why that's really important to you. And let me share with you some of my concerns. And so again, you're having this conversation very calmly, you're not fighting about it. But you could say, I'm concerned about this and this and this. Those are the things that worry me and make me want to say no. But convince me. All right. Take some time, think about what my concerns are, and then come back to me with the plan. And then
curfew, screen time, parties, like the big ones where you're like, no. And they're like, yes. And no, yes.
I want to go to the concert in the next town, right? No, there's a million things that could go wrong with that. And so as your parent, let me share the things that keep me up at night. And then you think on that and then come back to me. And this is such a powerful exercise because they feel like you're on their team. Like, I want to say yes to this, but these are the things that keep me up at night. And it gives them an opportunity to have empathy for your point of view and really exercise their critical thinking skills. So they have to come up with a plan and a contingency plan. And if this goes wrong, what will happen? And all of that. And they can come back and convince you. And if they've come back and they've really thought through all of the issues and they come up with a good plan, you can say, wow, you put a lot of work into that. You really considered my concerns, and I so appreciate that. And I feel confident saying yes in this situation.
Oh, so you have to go in there, not just telling them that they're going to convince you, but there is a potential that sometimes this happens. You are going to convince me, but sometimes you're probably not. And I would think that sometimes when they go and actually do their research, they might sometimes come to their own conclusions that it's not a good idea.
Exactly. And that's the beautiful thing about this. It's not you telling them no, like they're really thinking through it. And sometimes the answer is going to be no. And you can still respond in the same way. Wow, you really put a lot of thought into this. I really appreciate how you took my concerns into account. And with all of that, at this point, I just don't feel comfortable with that. Now, that doesn't mean I won't feel comfortable in 3 months, but right now I don't. And so that's a much more respectful process than just, no, there's no way we're doing that.
And what about like the day-to-day conflicts of unload the dishwasher? No, well, or the no, just flat out. I think what we hear a lot of parents saying is just the flat out. We could never say to our parents, no. It's like this.
I have a perfect example from last night.
I'm asking for you actually, because I know we have this on.
So
classic asking for a friend.
So I walked down to the kitchen and the groceries have been delivered. And she's like, I'm going to put all the groceries away. Half an hour I come downstairs. She hasn't put the groceries away. I'm like, I thought you said you're going to put the groceries away. And she's like, well, you could have asked me nicely. Now I'm not going to do it immediately. I'm like, nobody asked me nicely to spend all my money on your groceries, but I did it anyways. The least you could do is put them away. And I'm pretty sure that my response was not the perfect way of handling it.
Well, so first off, we all have those moments, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. So I like to think about, okay, if I was doing this situation over, for the general, like, I think you said somebody said something about the dishwasher. Like, let's use an example like that. Yeah, the mundane stuff. So the key with the mundane stuff is we don't want to have to ask all the time. right?
Exactly.
It is so much better if you can incorporate that into what we call a when-then routine. And so like, it's a routine. Like the kids know that every Tuesday and Thursday, like I'm in charge of the dishwasher. And so the routine is when I've finished unloading the dishwasher and finished up my homework and whatever my other family job was that day, then I can have my 45 minutes of screen time, whatever it is, until X o'clock. So you always set the tasks that have to be done up in a when then format. When these things are done, then you can enjoy your technology time. When these things are done, then you can leave for soccer practice. Now, so that's sort of like for the mundane everyday stuff. For the example that you gave with the groceries, one of the ways that I love to get kids to help out for tweens and teens is to invite cooperation. So you can say something like, it sounds like in this case, she volunteered, but let's say she didn't. So if they don't volunteer, you can say, hey, I am slammed getting all this stuff cleaned up after dinner. Anything that you can do to help with the groceries would be amazing.
Oh, that sounds really nice.
Isn't that nice? Anything that you could do to help with this would make such a difference for me. Because the difference between a chore and a contribution is the difference that it makes to someone else.
Oh my gosh. Wait, so could we position it like that for all of the chores?
Or if they do nothing.
Okay, so that's the thing.
As
No, you
contribution?
can't position it like that for everything. So for all the other stuff, like I'm telling you, set it up in a when-then routine, and all your kids have technology time, right?
Yeah.
They're allowed some tech time, right?
Oh, yes.
Right. So my rule is we don't give technology time just willy-nilly, right? It is always tied to a when-then routine. When you've completed these family jobs, when you've completed your homework, like whatever those to-dos are on their list, when those things are done, then you can have your technology. But the reason I say you don't do invite cooperation for everything is because when you use that strategy, you have to be okay with them saying no. Opting out, right? And that's the power in it, because you're saying anything that you could do to help would be amazing. It's giving them the opportunity to contribute on their own terms, not being forced to do it, but because they have decided that, yeah, I'm going to help out. And so that's not going to work for every situation. Sometimes stuff needs to get done, and then you'll put that as part of a when-then routine. But it's so cool when they can help out. They get that feeling that comes from contributing to the greater good of the family. And it wasn't because they were forced to do it. They were invited to help out if they'd like to.
At what point do they begin to comprehend that putting, like, let's just say you ask them to put their stuff away. They know they have to put their bag away, their shoes away, everything away every day. Yet it doesn't happen. So you end up obviously getting frustrated because you've asked now 7 times. When and then they're not going anywhere. They don't need, like, the when and there's no it's not a big power for then, like, because it could be tomorrow, they're then, right? How are we holding them to an expectation without a huge like heavy lift on our part of when and then? Like, at what point can we say, hey, not cool right now, I've asked you 4 times, can you please put your stuff away? Like, what is that thing that doesn't make them feel ashamed or berated, and us not banging our heads and getting frustrated? Like, is there a time we can just be like, this is not cool, like, I'm not okay with this?
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the way we position it, though, is so important. And so thinking about, again, not in the heat of the moment. So maybe this is just like we're calling a little family meeting and being like, you know what, guys, every day when I come home from work, I see the shoes on the floor, the bags are laying there. And that's not cool because, there's a lot of us that live in this house, and we've got to keep it neat so we can function here. So I need your help. Like, what do we need to do differently? What do we need to do so this doesn't happen? Maybe it's a system problem. Maybe you need hooks outside in the garage before they come in. Like, kind of go into problem solving mode with them, right? I mean, you could get like super consequential and be like, okay, anything laying there in the mudroom is going to go into a box, and I'm going to put it in the garage because I don't want to look at it. But we don't want to do that, right? Like, let's get into a problem solving scenario with them, and then see if they can come up with something that you can all come up with something together that they have buy-in for.
Amy, when I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about a lot of parents who have, let's, in the teen and tween, let's even say like teen, and this when and then for doing chores around the house has not been implemented yet. And my child, let's say I have a 16-year-old, it feels like it will be a really big hurdle to implement that now. Is it too late? Would they respond at that age? Is it too late?
No, it's not too late at all. Now, what you could do is go that problem-solving route first. Okay. So, guys, I've noticed, again, that word "I've noticed" is really a phrase is important, because it's not like like all the time, we don't want to get into the accusations, but I've noticed that this happens and I need some help trying to figure this out, because I don't want to nag you guys about this. That's not fun for me. And I know you don't enjoy it either. So go that route first. Then if that doesn't work, then kind of our next step is the when then routine. And it's simply a matter of, there's a balance in families between privileges and responsibilities, just like it is out in the world where you're going to be very soon. And so one of the rules, so I don't have to nag you guys about this. One of the rules that we have decided to implement is you can enjoy your technology when the other things are done. So we're going to start doing this new when then, or whatever you want to call it. But when your family jobs are done, then you can have your technology time. And a lot of families will even do devices in the charging station as soon as you come home from school. Like, that's not available until those jobs are done. So what we're doing is starting with a more collaborative approach. Again, working on problem solving together. Maybe we need different systems. Maybe they're sick of doing the same old jobs they've been doing forever, and we need to change that up. I have families who do almost like an NFL draft thing, where the kids pull a first-round draft pick for jobs.
And
that's
so
funny.
Isn't
that cool? And then they can trade them. And so, yeah, you can do that and have your jobs for the month. So there are different ways to solve these problems rather than us assuming all the control. That's what we started with, where so many of these struggles come from is us as the parent trying to be in control rather than sharing some of that control with the kids to solve some of these issues.
I love that NFL draft. I've never thought about that before. That's a good one.
I'm also assuming there's two things that have to go in here. Number one, you have to have a conversation with them before you implement anything, and just decide that today you're doing when and then, and you're taking their phones, and now that's it. And the second thing is you have to be consistent. You can't do it for 3 days and then decide that you are now going to put all their dishes away and scream at them that they didn't do it. I'm assuming that it is work on our part too, which is what gets hard.
And a lot of language, the words that we say, so that they don't feel like they're being attacked.
Exactly. So everything that you just said is spot on, 1,000%. And let's go back to what we talked about at the very beginning of this segment, which was that emotional connection. All right. If we're not doing that piece where they feel like we are on their team, that doesn't mean we're their best friend, but we're on their team. We're connecting with them. We're spending one-on-one mind, body, and soul time with them on a regular basis. If we're not doing those things, I'm telling you, all of the other stuff, even the when then routines, as powerful as that is, it'll continue to be a battle. And so think about that time that we're spending, that mind, body, and soul time with them. That is the investment that we make, right? And not only in the relationship with them, but it's also the investment that we make to make the other stuff easier, the routines and the stuff that has to get done and the family contributions. Because not that it's going to be, a piece of cake, but I'm telling you, they're going to be more cooperative, more generally agreeable on those things if we've done the connection work to start with.
Okay.
I mean, I think all of us are nodding our heads, and sometimes we just need to hear it in order to implement it, because things feel so out of control sometimes. So I just, thank you so much. And I feel like your books will be very helpful for the reminder of, what we need. Where can people find you, and where can they go to learn more about you? And I need the me on another one, but where can we get all your goodness?
Well, so thank you so much for asking. So parents can come to our website, positiveparentingsolutions.com, and take a free class with me. It's called Get Kids to Listen Without Nagging, Yelling, or Losing Control. Lots of good strategies in that, or they can check out my books, The Me Epidemic, or if I have to tell you one more time, on Amazon or anywhere you buy books.
And we will leave all of that in the show notes for everyone who's listening, so you can easily find Amy and also buy her books.
Thank you guys
so much.
We really appreciate you being here. You've again taken a light bulb, so thank you.
Oh, you're so sweet. It has been a privilege.
Have a great day.